Welcome everyone to InstantPot 101. Glad you're here. Let's get talking about why this appliance can help you out in the kitchen, help you on your health and wellness journey. And I am going to talk about the crock pot a little bit and the air fryer, which I'm just starting to get familiar with just a little bit via my mother's kitchen, actually. She just got an air fryer. It's kind of one of the latest, that you hear a lot about pressure cookers like the Instant Pot, and you hear a lot about the air fryers right now as well. So let's get started on these different things. And I will go with this is actually my second crock pot. So my number one lesson to send in this video to you is don't carry it by the handle, okay? We had a little incident with our first Instant Pot. I'm sorry if I say crock pot and Instant Pot and I mix those together. Just bear with me. I'll try to correct myself. So I was holding the Instant Pot like this as we were, it was either my husband or myself, one of the two of us had the Instant Pot, and holding it with, hot, delicious food inside of it, leaving a potluck style family get together. So we were back in the garage. One of us turns, which one of us, I'm not going to name names who was holding it. So, and then it lifted, and then the Instant Pot fell. So the first thing you want to do is never carry it by the handle because it's just a really heavy device. So I always hold it by the sides. And the nice thing about the sides is even when the contents are warm, this top part is going to be hot. And there is actually a sticker on there usually when you first purchase this. I've had this one for a while, so I peeled it off because it's like, I get it. I know the top part is hot. But the sides, and there's handles as well, the sides do not get hot. So always carry it like this when you're moving it around in your kitchen. So we dropped it, all the delicious food fell on the garage floor, and then one of these handles snapped right off. And I just didn't want to take a chance with, it's a pressure cooker, you guys. Like I was like, and a note about that too, don't be afraid of it. I've used it. I mean, we've made probably over 100 meals in our crock pot, Instant Pot, sorry. We've made probably over 100 meals in our Instant Pot over the last couple of years. And we use it weekly. We love it. And once you really get used to it, the intimidation factor goes away. Just gotta kind of just, peel the Band-Aid off and get to work with it. So one of our favorite recipes that we make is we will buy a whole chicken. A lot of times we'll go to Costco and get a double pack of organic chickens. It's a pretty good price there. I think they're about $10 a chicken. Any other place that's selling organic chickens is going to push it closer to 15. And I'm like, for an uncooked chicken, I could get a rotisserie chicken anyway. So that's usually what I do. Pop the whole thing in here. And then I have a recipe list that I am going to attach for you down below. And you can go ahead and print that off at home. So you have just kind of the really good, basic, healthy go-tos that you can make for, I have hard-boiled eggs here, shredded chicken, whole chicken, chicken soup, bone broth, veggies, and all different things like that. So anyway, we'll put the whole chicken in here. We'll cook it for 30 minutes. And you can even just do salt and pepper is fine. You can grab any kind of seasonings you like. Sage and thyme are just wonderful for poultry. That's one of my favorites for chicken. And again, salt and pepper. So a little bit of that. And when it's done, and I'll explain what 30 minutes means on here in just a little bit. When that chicken is done, it's fall off the bone delicious. The skin will be a little rubbery, okay, anytime you cook in the Instant Pot with chicken and with the skin on like that. If you prefer a crispy chicken like you would get at a rotisserie style deli, you can go ahead and take the chicken out, place it into, an oven pan, put it in your oven on broil for like 5 minutes, and then that'll crisp the top of your chicken. So that's a really nice way to do that. We do that quite often. Sometimes we just prefer to pull the skin off and eat the meat. And then we'll usually have roasted veggies, some potatoes available, and have a dinner that way. And then afterwards, we'll take the rest of the meat off of the chicken, put it into, a Tupperware style glass container usually, and then keep that for eating on the rest of the week, which is nice. And then we're not done yet because we can use those bones. So that's the beauty of buying a whole chicken is you can utilize the chicken bones, especially with organic. You have an option to make your own bone broth. So you're getting that nutrient density. You're saving money with your wallet because if you go, you can buy bone broth if you don't have the time to make it over at Costco, but the quality of making your own bone broth is great. And plus making it in here is just like amazing. Because usually bone broth, you have to let it cook. If you're going to make it in a crock pot, which you completely can because it's a set it and totally forget it kind of thing. It sounds so gimmicky. Set it, forget it. But it's usually 24 hours in a regular crock pot style. So, but in the Instant Pot, you can make chicken bone broth in 30 minutes. You can make beef bone broth in 60 minutes. So that's really great. Pulling all those nutrients out and doing that. So soups, that's what I wanted to talk about a lot with this guy and with your crock pot. You don't have to have a $60, $80 gizmo to make really delicious, healthy foods. You can also go out and buy a crock pot and make a lot of the things that you would make in this, which is awesome. So wherever your budget is, like, don't be afraid of adding in some devices in your kitchen. I just find that it's incredibly helpful, especially on busy days. So once you have that bone broth made, you can freeze it. I've froze it in Ziploc baggies before. I've even done it in mason jars. There's a little trick to that, though. You got to leave a lot of space, like this much space from the top, so it doesn't break the jar when it defrosts. And it has to be like basically fridge temperature before you move it to the freezer. So there's just a couple tidbits. If you do say, hey, Casey, I made that bone broth in the Instant Pot, with the chicken, and then boom, my glass jar broke. So you might want to Google that one and look into that and just make sure you're really comfortable doing that. But Ziploc bags, the plastic's going to expand and things like that. So you're okay with doing that. You're not going to break anything that way. But the nice thing about mason jars is that they're relatively affordable. But I always get bummed out about losing that bone broth that I put all that time into. So I have a recipe here for bone broth. So I won't go into the details of that because you'll have it down below. So soups that you can make. You can make turkey and wild rice soup with chicken broth. You can make beef and broccoli. There's just like so many different things that you can make in your Instant Pot or in a crock pot. Butternut squash soup is another option for either of those devices. Bean soups you can make. You can even cook fish in your Instant Pot or in your crock pot. So that's something to look into. If any of those things sound enticing to you, just pull up trusty Google and type in, Instant Pot fish or Instant Pot crock pot. We are just so incredibly lucky to live in the age of, I'm kind of craving fill in the blank, and you can Google a healthy version of that. That's usually what I tell my clients is to find whatever it is that you're really craving, make it at home in a way that's healthy for you. And you'll save money in your wallet and you'll save that waistline as well, which is great. So let's go back to, so we talked about the handle, the sides, when you're carrying it, the heat on the sides is okay. And there's also handles. So you don't have to worry about that so much. There is the hottest part of this Instant Pot is going to be up here. So you want to avoid touching the metal on the top of the Instant Pot because it's hot. I mean, I've touched it before. I haven't gotten burned, but it's kind of like a curling iron. Maybe not quite as intense as a curling iron, but it gets hot. So just be really careful about these metal plates. And you'll see, usually there's a sticker on these. I peeled mine off because I'm pretty comfortable with my Instant Pot. So just know that you don't have to be afraid of touching this part of the Instant Pot, but just avoid this part of it. And then over here, we've got the little pin. So the pin will pop flush to the top of this when it's pressurized. So right now you can see that it's not flush. You can see that it's down a little bit lower. So when the Instant Pot has full pressure, that pin, you're going to be able to see, you'd be able to see it right now if it were full pressure. So does that make sense? There are red pins in the newer version of the Instant Pot. And with the red pin, it will stick above when it's pressurized. Okay? So if you see a red pin, then you know, oh, it's pressurized when I can see it above. If you have a silver pin like mine, it's pressurized when it's flush to the black portion right here. And then you've got this vent. So I don't know if I can get close enough for you guys. So I'm going to read it to you. So this bottom part down here, which would be facing closest to me if I was looking at it, says venting. And this top part says sealing. So you always want to have it when you're trying to pressurize it up on the sealing part of it. Okay. And then when you're ready to depressurize it, you're going to push it down, okay, to venting. So pressurized, venting, pressurized, venting. Pressurized means there's no steam coming out. Venting means there's going to be a lot of steam coming out. So you never want to have your face looking down on it or anything like that. So, and I'm going to run a cycle for you so you'll be able to actually see all of those things and give you some tips and hints with that. Okay. And even when it's pressurizing, you guys, I can have my hand, I don't recommend this, but I can have my hand like an inch above it and it's not like scalding me or anything like that. It's just kind of a very fine mist. Again, just give it a try at home. I promise once you kind of rip the Band-Aid off, you make a couple things in your Instant Pot and they're super delicious and your family loves it, you'll be like, no, I love this thing. It's great. So another little handy hint that this particular model has, there we go. You can see these handles on the side. There's also handles on the other side. Oops, let me go over this side. And it sits right inside of that. And I only found this out maybe 6 months ago, if that, maybe 4 months ago. So you've got this handle piece and there's a little square right here in this handle piece. Because when you lift this out, there's going to be a lot of moisture on the top of your lid. And it's kind of just nice to have a place to put it. You can also, a lot of times I'll just set it like this right down on the side too. But if you don't have that countertop space, that's kind of a nice little hint. Let's talk about different places here. We've also got, so this, again, this Instant Pot's got a lot of love. When you first get this, this ring is going to be clear. So this one's just kind of discolored because I've made a lot of yummy dishes in it, things with tomatoes and whatnot as well. So I'm sure that's kind of where some of the discoloring comes from. But this can actually pop right out. Some people make things like cheesecakes in their Instant Pots. I see that in the Instant Pot groups a lot. I've never tried it. I use it as a health tool. I don't really use it for goodies. I would probably try it for something like oatmeal. Have we made? Yeah, I believe we've made oatmeal in it. We usually are kind of a stovetop oatmeal family, but there's recipes for that on here as well. So anyway, you can have two different kinds of these rings. These are also available to purchase separately. So you can have one for savory and one for sweeter things. But anyway, and it does get a little bit of an odor after so many different dishes and things. So if you're going to make chicken one night and then hard-boiled eggs or whatever, and you're kind of like, oh, it's kind of still got that chicken odor to it. What you can do is for cleaning, let me look at my little notes on the cleaning. Where are you cleaning? There we go. To get that scent out of the ring a little bit, it's like a steam clean. So what you'll do is you put a little bit of white vinegar into the basin. And then I need to let you guys know about that too. Always make sure the steel basin is in your Instant Pot, okay? Because the heating mechanics are down in the Instant Pot. Do you see it? So that's the main heat right there. And if you forget, like maybe the basin's over here and you're not really thinking about it, you're measuring some stuff and you like pour a cup of water in there, it's going to go right to that heating element, which is going to destroy your Instant Pot. So make sure that you always, always, always have the steel basin inside of it when you're going to pour things in. It's happened. We're human. But I'd love to see you avoid having to do that because these aren't cheap. So anyway, so you're putting a little bit of white vinegar in there to clean and water, and you can throw lemon rind in there, a chunk of lemon or something optional. And then you close it up and let it run for like 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes, maybe let it just kind of sit in there and just do its thing after it's run a short cycle. And that should help get that odor out of the ring for you. That might be even something to do weekly if you used it a lot, but if you're not using it a ton, you should be fine. All right. Let me look down at my notes here again, and I think we can start talking about the different settings on it. It comes with this little rack, okay? So this lowers down into the steel basin, which is great. The reason that this is handy, when you're making hard-boiled eggs, you set this down in there, and then that allows the water to stay below. So if you put a cup of water in and then you set this down, the water is going to stay underneath it, and then it's just going to kind of steam and pressure cook what you have in there. So again, you're going to be getting these recipes. I have how to hard-boil eggs on these recipes. That'll be linked down below that you can download and print. And so you can also put potatoes on these to kind of get them steamed. You can put roasts and things. They're not directly kind of underneath that. They're not underneath, I'm sorry, not right on top of that heating element, because that tends to kind of dry roasts and things like out. I'm actually a bigger fan of making roasts in my crock pot. So I wish I could say like this will replace every crock pot and everything you need in the kitchen. I don't know. We still like to use a crock pot from time to time. We still lean on this probably the hardest, but the crock pot's good for kind of that good old fashioned throwing in some potatoes and some veggies. I think just that ceramic surrounding just helps with the heat and cooking all of that. All right, so I could go on about the Instant Pot forever, you guys, but I don't want to give you so much information that you're like, okay, I got it. All right. So it comes also with a measuring cup. Measurements, speaking of. So there's a max line inside of your Instant Pot. Okay. It is right there. You can see it says max. Do not put anything above it, especially liquid. So that's pretty self-explanatory. If you did have a lot of liquid, let's say you went to the max line, maybe just a hair over it, you're going to get, when it starts to depressurize, and this little steam guy is going, you're going to get a lot of liquid flying out. Like just not flying. Okay, that sounded bad. Like not like flying out, but like spraying up. Okay, a little misty spray of liquid, and it may even start to drizzle down the sides if there's too much liquid in it. So something that you can do if that ever happens to you by accident, or even if the steam is a little extra juicy for some reason. I have had certain batches that are recipes that have just a little bit more juices going on. You can always take just a towel anywhere from your kitchen and just throw it over the top of it, and it'll just keep depressurizing. It's actually not even a bad idea as far as I do get concerned that the steam kind of goes right underneath my new cupboards, and moisture would generally not designed for that underneath the cupboard. So it's not a bad plan. Usually what I do is I actually turn it. I'll just turn it away as it's depressurizing. I just kind of turn it away from the cupboards. But you could also just go ahead and set a towel on top of it while things are kind of, that steam is coming up off the top. All right. Saute mode. We're going to talk about that. Let's talk about all the different. Oh, that's another good hint. Sometimes like it just won't pressurize. It won't kick over. And just giving that lid just like a little bit of a press down, it helps seal it. So if you're trying to troubleshoot and you're like, I don't understand, this isn't kicking over into the cooking time. Try just giving this just like a little bit of a press down, and then sometimes that helps it kind of get doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then another thing you can do, kind of like a crock pot, is the great thing about the crock pot is you just take 10 minutes and you just chop up stuff you're going to throw for your soup, and you throw it all in there, and away you go for your day. And then 8 hours later, 6 hours later, whenever you're coming back to eat that dinner, it's all ready to go. You can do the same thing with the Instant Pot. You can go ahead and put in whatever it is that you're going to make. Let's say it's only going to cook for 30 minutes because it's not going to cook for 8 hours, not in the pressure cooker. So it runs its cycle for 30 minutes. It will naturally depressurize. Okay. And then it'll stay on what is called, let's see if I can get this going here for us, on the warming mode. It'll just stay on that, and it'll keep your food warm. So for instance, I have a chili recipe that I love with sweet potatoes. Oh, it's talking to us. All right. So I have a chili recipe, and usually that's something you could make in the crock pot, and it would take about 8 hours to really get those flavors like really good in there. Because if you only cook it for like a half an hour where everything's kind of tender, still the flavor's just not right. That's just how chilies are. If you put it in here for 30 minutes, you can go ahead and eat it as if it had cooked for 8 hours. So that's the beauty of the Instant Pot. So if you're a fan of the crock pot and you like all the different flavors like that, you can get it so much quicker with the pressure cooking style. But let's say I'm going to make this chili, but I'm not going to be home to eat it later, and I don't have a crock pot, and I just want to make it in the Instant Pot. No problem. I throw it in there. It goes through its 30-minute cycle, and then it depressurizes on its own without the steam shooting up, because it's going to be what's called a slow release. Quick release, I will show you in a bit, and that is the shoot up. Slow release is just that it naturally releases the steam very slowly. There's no like huge things of steam shooting up. So it'll slow release, and then it'll just keep it warm. So even if you want to make chili and do it the 8 hour style in the crock pot, totally great. If you want to make chili and you aren't going to eat it for 8 hours after work, 10 hours after work, it's going to keep this warm for you, which is great. All right. There is a Facebook Instant Pot group called just Instant Pot 101, just like this one. So the title of this course. So you can hop on that Facebook group, and people are always posting things. Just beware, like I said, there's a lot of like, hey, did you guys make the cheesecake yet? Apparently it's delicious. Maybe save it for like a special occasion. But don't make that on the weekly if your goal is health or weight loss. You probably want to stick with some of the recipes that I'm handing to you, and they're really good. You won't be disappointed. All right, so let's go ahead and let's run a couple different things here. Okay, so first of all, there's two different kinds of pressure. There's a low pressure and a high pressure. And if you have a newer model, I don't even know, it just will automatically assume that you want to do high pressure. Every single recipe that I have linked for you guys down below is high pressure recipes. I don't use the low pressure for really anything. So that's kind of the pressure button right there is what that's for. I know things like rice, the rice setting is probably a low pressure setting. I actually find that the rice setting in this causes it to stick to the bottom of the stainless steel basin. Okay. And I found a recipe that uses a high pressure that I also have included for white rice on your sheet. And it doesn't stick to the bottom of the basin. So I would much rather I want to eat my rice and not, waste a bunch of it on the bottom of it. And I didn't mention this yet, but the nice thing too about the Instant Pot is that you're using stainless steel. Okay. And you can use a little bit, maybe you have like coconut oil spray or olive oil spray. Make sure the ingredients are as clean as you can find in those things. But anyway, it is better than eating with nonstick. Something that I actually need to replace in my house is my rice steamer. It uses nonstick. Rice cooker, sorry. It uses nonstick. I can just make it in here and I probably should. But my nonstick on my rice cooker right now just has like a bunch of scratches on it. Anytime that happens, each time you're scooping your food out of that, you're kind of scooping those heavy metals and things from that. And there's been a lot of studies. I'm sure you've seen Facebook things going around about nonstick and how if you can generally avoid that, cast iron is a nice affordable option. It felt really heavy when I first started using those a couple years ago, but nowadays it just feels like second nature to me. So stainless steel is a great option. That's like another reason why I really love pressure cookers and the Instant Pot. Okay, so we are going to go ahead. Let's say we're going to make hard-boiled eggs because it's a nice quick recipe and I love it. All right, so we're going to set our eggs in on the rack, right? So we're going to set this rack down in the basin. Bloop. I can actually set it in there too if you want me to. We'll set the rack in there. And I put 12 eggs. Why not? They'll all fit in there. It's no big deal. And then getting the lid on is always kind of like a little bit of a dance. But it does have on the front of it, it'll say open and close. So you kind of have to just follow that little arrow and then make sure that it's closed once it's on there. All right. So I've got my eggs in there theoretically. And actually I didn't show you this, but I do already have a cup of water in there. So don't hard boil don't try to cook things without water in there. You're not going to really hurt anything. It's just going to heat up and there's going to be no steam to pressurize. So you're just going to be like, it usually won't even kick over. It'll just be like, I can't kick over. There's no pressure inside of it. So anyway, there's already a cup of water in here. We're putting our theoretical eggs inside on top of the rack. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press the pressure button. Manual button, guys. We're going to press the manual button. And right now it's on 45 minutes. So there was something that was really cooking for a while last time. So I'm going to press this down, this like minus button, all the way down to 5. And that's literally it. So I get it to the time and I can see that this one is on high pressure. So there's the low pressure, which is not lit. It's lit under high pressure. So I push the timing down to 5, which is what my recipe calls for. And I'm just going to let it do its thing. So what's happening inside of it right now is that heating element on the bottom is starting to warm up. And then it'll warm up to the point and it'll get that water really kind of going. And then the little silver pin that you saw, once the pressure has reached where it needs to be, it will lift and be flush to the top. And it was on venting before, so I'm pushing over my little steam venter over to sealed. So it's on the sealed side. All right, so you'll see it doesn't automatically start counting down the 5 minutes. And the reason why is, like I just explained, it's got to warm up and pressurize first. So if a recipe says that you can make hard-boiled eggs in 5 minutes, that doesn't account for the fact that it needs to kind of warm up and pressurize first, which usually takes about 5 minutes. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple more things while we're waiting for this to pressurize. Okay, so one of my go-tos, what I really like to have, and the reason why I like having, a crock pot around, an Instant Pot around, and then we'll talk about the air fryer too while we're kind of waiting for this to warm up, is that I can make large quantities of food and then I can put it into my fridge and then I have them for lunches that week or for other dinners or busy times like that. And if I don't get around to that food within the first, 3 days or so, I can always put it in my freezer and then defrost it. Soups are amazing for defrosting as well. So what I'll usually make is I like a combination of chicken thighs and chicken breast and I just kind of toss it all in there. You kind of throw it all in there. You can, if you're really, really busy, just salt and pepper. You don't have to even open the spice cabinet beyond that. And away it goes. I don't even put the rack in for chicken usually because there's a lot of moisture there. So it's kind of sitting in its own juices. Another really easy recipe you can do is use salsa, and you can go ahead and just put, again, chicken breast or chicken thigh, whatever you're really into, in a jar. I'd probably say more like a cup of salsa. You don't need like an entire jar, but like a cup of salsa, and then let that cook for 25, 30 minutes on the Instant Pot. And then you're going to have shredded chicken after that and tacos with your family, which is really great. We also make black beans in this for taco night. Sometimes if I have, the full amount of time to cook things, I'll cook the black beans first. And then I swap out my basins, and then I do the chicken for another half an hour, kind of while I'm prepping everything else. That's if I have a lot of time to cook. Otherwise, we'll just crack open a can of black beans if we're kind of busy. But the benefit of making black beans in the Instant Pot is just that it helps break down kind of the outside coating of the bean has anti-nutrients. It by nature doesn't want to be digested down. Because if it's not digested down and then it's passed through an animal, let's say, it can be put back into the soil and grow into the plant that it wants to grow into, more or less. So breaking that down by pressurizing your black beans or any other kind of beans that you cook makes it easier for you to digest. It kind of breaks down that outside layer that is protecting it. So that's a nice little tidbit there. And I also like to make sweet potatoes. I'll go to Costco. I'll grab like a bag of chicken breast or anything like that. And I'll make the chicken, and then I'll grab some sweet potatoes and I'll put those in with the rack. So it's very similar to these eggs. So you've got the rack, got a cup of water underneath it, and your sweet potatoes on top. I don't even feel the need to take the skin off of it. I'll usually clean them a little bit if they're, get that dirt off and things like that. Maybe slice them in half or just put them in their whole. And then you cook the sweet potatoes. And I believe I have a recipe down for that. Mashed sweet potatoes. I will look into, I want to say it's 15 minutes probably to steam sweet potatoes to 20. I can double check that. I think I just have mashed potatoes on here instead of the steamed like sweet potatoes to kind of get that nice consistency. So again, just kind of setting yourself up well for the week. And we'll go over a couple different things here. You can make quinoa. Let's talk about, again, the crock pot is fantastic. So if you're not really interested in Instant Pot, you don't want to shell out the money for it because you're not sure. Oh, another hint, tip there is if you don't want to shell out, it's not on sale at Target. Let's say you go to Target and you're like, I just can't justify, $70 for this right now. Check with Facebook Marketplace, check with OfferUp. These puppies are intimidating for a lot of people, and don't feel bad if you're in that category because I want you to use it. I hope you feel more confident as we're talking about these things. And I can hear it kind of starting to fire up for us. So you're going to see in action what the steam and everything looks like. But anyway, you can find it. A lot of times people say, I've had this, laying around and I'm just going to sell it. You can find it for about half the price that way sometimes. You could also put in search of an ISO Instant Pot. And there's different sizes. There's a smaller one than this if you're just a family of two. I do feel like the 6-quart, which is the kind of main size, is a great size for pretty much everybody because, again, you can put a lot of sweet potatoes in there and then you can have them throughout your week. You can freeze them. It's just a really great starch. And I know I push sweet potatoes a lot. If they don't work for your body type, don't feel bad about that. There's lots of other starches that you can make. And then let's see. Okay, so the time has started. And I'm looking over and I can see the pin has now elevated. So I'm going to lift you guys up so you can see it. So you can see the pin is up. So pressure, it has pressurized, and so then it starts the timer. So this is where the 5-minute eggs kind of kicks in, and you can see how that took just a few more minutes for it to kind of pressurize. The more food you have in it, a little bit longer it's going to take to pressurize. The less food, the less time it takes to pressurize. So just an FYI there. So you can find this, again, we're talking about like finding an offer up for things like that. I like this size. There's also an 8-quart, which is even bigger for a bigger family if you want to make bigger meals. That's a great option as well. Let's talk about the air fryer while these 5 minutes are counting down. So my mom picked up an air fryer, and it was one of those things where their best friends had one and they loved it so much that they gifted one to her, which is really sweet. So I was over at her house just the other day and I was helping her make some meals. And I'm also a big fan of I am a big fan of green plantains. So if you haven't tried green plantains before, head over to like pretty much any grocery store around here carries them, which is great. Fred Meyer for sure does. A lot of other places do as well. So I will make usually green plantains in my cast iron pan on the stovetop. And it requires kind of a lot of oil, otherwise they kind of have a dried out kind of flavor to them. Well, in the air fryer, I was able to use it at my mom's house. They cooked faster, they were a little bit crispier, and I could really, really be sensitive to the amount of oil I wanted to put on them. Because I didn't want it to be like French fry doused, but I still wanted it to taste good. So the air fryer was actually really awesome for making fried plantains. And we also tried sweet ones as well in a little coconut oil. That's my favorite. So olive oil is usually my favorite go-to for green plantains, and then ripe plantains. And if you have any questions about what these are, you guys, it's just like a really big banana. Starchier, kind of more like a potato, not as sweet, although as they sweet, it's just kind of a different type of banana. That's kind of, just imagine a big banana that's kind of, when it's green, it's kind of like a potato. So anyway, so I like coconut oil on sweet plantains that are more ripe. And it did good with both of those things. You can also make sweet potato fries. And again, you can make it in a faster time than you would in a traditional oven. And then you can also make just a little bit less oil. Like you can kind of cut it in half than what you're using to really make them delicious in the oven. So you're cutting your time down and you're cutting your oils down, which I think is pretty cool. I might have to invest in one. I have my eye on the ones at Costco. There's one at Costco and it has stainless steel, which is great again, because there's different types of air fryers. My mom is actually a nonstick and it's brand new. There's no scratches or anything like that. But, over time I could see that maybe being, getting scratched and maybe wanting to replace that. So anyway, so there's a stainless steel one at Costco. If you find it on sale, let me know. I'm not always there. So I'm like, oh. But anyway, I currently use a toaster oven. And I make things. Have you guys heard of sweet potato toast? So you're just cutting a sweet potato like really thin, and then I set those sometimes instead of like bread. I use sweet potato, and you can set them in something like an air fryer would do a fantastic job. You can put a little oil on it and get it in there. But I usually put them dry in my toaster oven. But I may completely replace my toaster oven for an air fryer someday. And then I'll just be the appliance lady with my crock pot and my Instant Pot and my air fryer. But I am all about the future of cooking, and most people are very busy people. And the less time you have to spend, kind of slaving over the oven, the better. So I'm all about the future. All right, so we're getting down to 1 minute on our timer here. And so it will beep at us. And there's actually an option, you guys. Let's say you have someone in your house that's sensitive to noise or the baby's asleep and you're like, I don't want this to beep super loud, because you'll see when it's done, it's gonna let me know it's done. And there is an option to turn the sound off. Okay. So that same button that press the time down, kind of that minus button, if you hold that down, it will say sound off on it. And then if you want the sound back again, there's the plus button. If you hold that down, it'll turn the sound back on. So just kind of like little fun features that I've kind of been learning along the way. All right, so this is going to be done here And then I'm going to show you how to quick depressurize, quick release. That's what in recipes, it'll say quick release. All right, so it is done. If I'm not home right now, let's say I'm making actually, if we are making hard-boiled eggs, right, we have eggs in here, we're pretending that's what's in there. You would let this go ahead and sit for 10 minutes. So they cook for 5 and then they sit for 10. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I have that on here. That should be on here. I'll have to add that on here. I believe it might be 5 minutes, you guys. All right, so I'm going to update that on my hard-boiled eggs because it should be sitting for just a few more minutes. Okay, so I'm letting that sit for 5 minutes. Let's say I'll put a timer on. This will actually tell you when it's been 5 minutes. It'll count up to 5 minutes, and then I'm ready to depressurize. So when you're depressurized, you can just go ahead and quick release, I should say. When you quick release, push it over from sealing to venting. So again, you're getting that steam that's kind of shooting straight up. I can put my hand over it, and it's okay. There's, be some moisture there. But that's it, you guys. When you have food in there, that's how you get it to depressurize. And I'm going to have you look at the pin here. It is still telling me, that it's still under pressure. You can hear the pressure kind of starting to come down. And you'll see here in just a minute, the pin fell back down. So when the pin goes down, that tells me, okay, it's safe to open it now. So you can go ahead and turn the lid and see the steam inside there. You'll see how remember I was saying it gets really drippy and things like that. So go ahead and turn it on inside. Just like that. You can do that, or you can go ahead and just set it like this down on like your countertop. All right. So that is the basics with the Instant Pot. Basically, most of the things that you use are going to ask you to use that manual button. Let's get closer for the button so you can see that too. I'm always opposite. I'm trying to be opposite of what it is. All right, so manual, again, I'm going to turn it off. Let's say we're going to make something and the recipe calls for high pressure for 10 minutes. So I'm pressing manual, pressing this plus button to get it up to 10 minutes. And that's all you have to do, and then it will kick in. There's a slow cook option. And then when it's all done and it goes to this mode, when there's like basically a kind of a clock going on, then that's just keeping it on warm for you. Okay, so that is pretty much everything, you guys. It's beeping. It's ready to go. All right, so if you have any questions about the Instant Pot, again, don't be nervous about it. There's always those stories of like, we've never had any issues with ours. We've never, really been afraid of it. If anything, it's just really added to our ability and speed in the kitchen of taking care of food and things like that. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope to see you using it. Send me pictures, add pictures. This is something that can just kind of help you like beyond this challenge and whatnot. And I'll talk to you guys soon.